Hello and welcome to Hands on Tech. Today we will take a look at some of the PS5 games that were announced on June 11th. But before that, let's take a look at the brand new PS5. So now that we've taken a look at the lovely new consoles, I would like to recommend a video that I did on disc versus digital following the release. I take a look at the comparison between the two, the differences, and which one I ultimately will be choosing, so check that out. So let's do what we came here for. Let's have a look at the titles that were announced on PS5 on June 11th. However, before I start, I'd like to issue a spoiler alert. There will be spoilers for existing PS4 titles, including Spider-Man and Horizon. So if you've not played those games, I would highly recommend you do. But until you have, I recommend coming back at a later date. I would like to mention that I'm not going to go through absolutely every game that was announced. However, I will go through a few key ones that I'm particularly excited about and do some honourable mentions. For example, Gran Turismo 7, which you can see now. Gran Turismo, as we all know, is focused on offering a real-world driving experience wherever possible. Ultimately, they want to create an environment which is completely immersive. With the increase in graphic capability within the PS5, we can expect a more immersive experience, which in my mind will make Gran Turismo of particular interest. I'm very excited to see this title released because I feel they're taking steps in the right direction. Now, Gran Turismo, as we all know, there's a range of cars. We've most likely seen them before in previous titles, so what can we expect? I think the real driving force of this new game will be the new capabilities of the PS5, and it marks an amazing step into the future for driving games. So moving on, next I would like to mention Spiderman Miles Morales, which is of particular interest to me as a massive Spider-Man fan. I absolutely loved the first Spider-Man on PS4, it was absolutely amazing, I loved it so much. I was totally surprised by it as well because Spider-Man, we weren't, I think, anticipating much from those games. Marvel games in general are not that great. This Spider-Man was well thought out, it offered a great immersive experience, the story was excellent, and the open world capabilities of the game were exceptional. So I'm very, very excited to see the sequel. So I will move on to the story details. Now, Miles Morales, obviously the title has been announced, but if you haven't played the game, you will not know who that is. But if you have, you'll know him as one of the key characters in the storyline of the first Spider-Man. So Spider-Man veterans will know that Miles' father unfortunately meets an untimely end in the first game. So Miles ultimately sets about helping Spider-Man in any way he possibly can, even in a limited function, but ultimately ends up inheriting the same powers that Peter Parker has. In the end credits of Spider-Man, we see Miles reveal his powers to Peter Parker, setting up a sequel which I anticipated for PS5. So what can we expect from the sequel? Ultimately, Miles will have his separate story. I wouldn't classify it as a sequel totally, I would say it's more of an offshoot of the story, which is great news because he was one of my favourite supporting characters from the first game. I would most likely see Peter Parker in a supporting role. He will be in the story, no doubt, and so will Mary Jane most likely. One of my major questions is, who is Miles going to be fighting against in the sequel? Now, they revealed all their cards pretty openly in the first game. Obviously, they used the Sinister Six. All of those characters have now been used. They've also used the line of they were captured originally by Spider-Man and then they escaped from the raft. So I'm not really sure what they're going to do with Miles. Either some of those Sinister Six escape again, which would be a little bit overused, or potentially we're facing a brand new bad guy. So I'm very excited to see how they're going to work it out. Not sure how they're going to do it, but we'll see. And I'm definitely going to be buying the game as soon as it's out. So moving on to the number one game that I am extremely excited about, and I think also from PlayStation's point of view, leaving it to the end, they've truly left the best for last. Now, this, as we all know, is the sequel to Horizon, which we've all been waiting for. Now, if you've not played Horizon before, get hold of it, play it, and get the sequel as soon as it comes out because I think you won't regret it. If you don't know, Horizon is made by Guerrilla Games, who are responsible for the Killzone franchise. That franchise in particular did start to peter out towards the end. I was still a fan. I'm really happy to see them doing so well with a brand new franchise, and I'm extremely excited about the sequel. They obviously left it with a little bit of a cliffhanger with Silence, obviously being the main sort of aid of Aloy during the entire campaign. I don't know if you're the same as me, but I always anticipated Silence turning on Aloy at some point. I actually anticipated it in the actual game itself and within that storyline, but we're going to see that on the sequel. We're not sure totally what his intentions are, but he has captured Ares' form and is going to be using it for his sinister means in the sequel. Overall, I'm absolutely thrilled to see a sequel for Horizon. Obviously with Zero Dawn, they made an amazing foundation with great creatures, great characters in general, and also great gameplay, which is most important. And I'm excited to see how they will expand it, the new world we'll see, the new creatures, and what Silence has in store for Aloy. So I'm going to be moving on to the final two that I'd like to discuss. Now, these are not sequels, they're originals. I'm not sure either whether they're exclusives for PlayStation. They might see them on Xbox, but the first one I'd like to discuss is Returnal. So not much is known about the actual details. They've given a very brief description. Returnal is described as a third-person shooter featuring roguelike elements. The player controls a space pilot stranded on an alien world, and every time she dies, the world regenerates. I think overall it looks like an interesting game. I like the idea of a Groundhog Day style of gameplay. I like the alien world as well, and it looks like a new fresh horror game as well. It's got a sinister sort of tone to it, so I'm particularly excited about it and I'll definitely check it out. So next up I'd like to discuss the final game today, which is Pragmata. Not much is known about Pragmata yet. Apparently it's going to be released in 2022, so it's really early. We're getting a little bit of a teaser trailer, which is very interesting. The graphics look great. And the story overall looks very interesting. Obviously we don't know too many details, but it's described as set in a dystopian near future on Earth's moon. And it features the main character you can see here alongside his daughter and a small cat as well, which is interesting because cats featured very heavily in the June 11th announcement. I anticipate an escape room style of game. Ultimately, I think that the main protagonist and his daughter will face a multitude of different challenges that they'll have to overcome in order to escape back to Earth. Potentially it could be the other way around. They potentially could be on Earth and they have to try and get back to the moon, their actual home. Overall, Pragmata to me looks very exciting. Although there's not many details, I'm still excited about it, and despite it being released in 2022, I'm anticipating more information coming, which will build excitement towards its release. So overall, very excited about it. It looks like a nice game, great graphics, and an intriguing father-daughter story, which is great. Now, despite the games I have mentioned today, the two main features, Gran Turismo, Pragmata, and Returnal, I think ultimately I was overall very disappointed with the PlayStation announcement. They had a lot of what I would describe as filler games, games that are not particularly of much intrigue to an adult, most likely. There are a lot of small, sort of arcade-style games. Ultimately, that's down to taste, so that's really up to you, but my feeling is that without the main titles of Spider-Man, Gran Turismo, and also Horizon, we'd be looking at a very scarce future for the PS5, but luckily we do have a few games to look forward to, and I'm particularly excited about the ones that I've mentioned. So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video and my comments on the games we're going to see on the PS5. Please comment below and let me know what you think about the games, which ones you're excited for and which you're not. Please like, comment and subscribe. This has been Tom for Hands On Tech. Thank you and see you next time.